say survival again. It's been a long time. And I'm sitting here with Bella, and our view today is the Fraser River. But what I want to talk to you about today is an issue that we came across. It wasn't really an issue, it was an update for what I wanted to do. When we were on holiday this summer, of which I apologize we didn't make a video for you, but it was pretty much the same as what we did last year. Other than we went to Washington, the North Olympic coast, and then the West Coast. So yeah, we didn't really do too much down there. We just went to explore to see if it was any good. But, you know, that's what it is. But when we left Washington going to Oregon, I was at about, I want to say 57-58% left of the batteries. And I was thinking, if we were to go to another dry site, fortunately we weren't, we were actually going to a full pay site with all the services. What would I need to do to have more energy in the batteries for us to dry camp? And that obviously would be to charge them up. And we have a really good solar system, but the downside is it wouldn't have recuperated enough for us to have 100%. Now the obvious way to go, as we've done in the past, is to go with a DC-DC converter. I just didn't want to run large wires from the front of the truck to the trailer. And we also have that 2 kilowatt inverter. So what I wanted to do was update the charging system while we're driving. I actually wanted to go AC to DC, so a battery charger. And that's what I've been playing with. But I came up with some issues with the 2 kilowatt inverter in the truck, especially the outlet that's in the bed. Now, if you haven't seen the other videos, please have a look at video 1, 2, and 3 on the inverter system of Ford F-150s, which I was under the impression, and I still am, that it's a really good system. A lot of people say, yeah, okay, whatever, but I've not had a problem. But as soon as we put on a 60 amp lithium battery charger, which I'll show you in a second, the amperage was so high, 56 to 60 amps, that the 2 kilowatt inverter in the bed of the truck, the actual socket, overloaded and wanted a reset. And I'll get you some videos of that reset happening. So I had to come up with an alternative method of doing it. I read on the Ford forum, or a customer on the Ford forum had complained about the bed output was not as good as the cabin output, even though they're both 20 amps. And I was like, nah, that doesn't sound right. But we are having a problem with the bed socket. And so we decided to double check this theory, go to the socket that's behind the center armrest in the back of the truck and see if it would do it. And lo and behold, it worked. So there is a difference between the run, I guess, from the cab or from the inverter to the bed. And it can't handle high amp loads, even though I know it's a 20 amp circuit. 20 amps going to the battery charger is perfectly fine. The battery charger increases the amperage to charge the batteries, but when they are low, they want high amperage to charge them up, and that is definitely a problem. But I plugged it into the socket in the back of the truck by the rear center console, and it worked perfectly fine. And I was surprised. We were getting 56 amps. The only downside is you have to run a cable from the inside all the way to the bed. And I didn't want to do a permanent fix as I have in the past, because I just did not want any issues with cutting holes again. I don't want to run wires under the frame and etc., as I've done in the past. But I'll show you and we'll walk through everything that we've done. So this is the socket that I installed. It's just an Amazon extension with a waterproof seal right there. And that just goes into the front of the nose cone. I know it's not centered because there's a frame right in the middle. That adapter comes through the body right there. And I've just got the there's a hole of wires here. I just poked that wiring up into there, and that is the battery charger that we're talking about. And that is a Progressive Dynamics PD 9160AL. That's a 60 amp lithium battery charger. This is the problem. You can see the black wires at the back there. They come around, and I've just mounted them to the jump poles, or the positive and negative, of my Kisei charger inverter, 3000 watt, because they just follow the red and black wires to the batteries and charge the batteries up, because this is not on while we're driving. And the problem with this is, because it's 60 amps, it draws a lot of power when my lithium batteries, these guys in here, as you've seen in my previous videos, because when my battery is drying down about 5%, the battery charger just wants to kick in. It's like 40 plus amps, and that load in the socket, sort of right there in the back of the bed, it overloads this whole circuit. Okay, so we're going to turn on the generator mode. The cable is plugged into the bed, which I'll show you shortly. It's because something is plugged in, we have to say yes. The idle increases, and this is the annoying thing, it today works perfectly fine, albeit I'm not driving. But again, you can see in the side picture here that it's also doing 50 plus amps, and the battery level is at 86%, which means that this typically would fail when I'm trying to do anything. So I'm going to have to try and capture this for you to say that it doesn't always work. Now, if we turn it in the generator mode off and we go to the 400 watts, which we'll see up here, you can see that we're already kicking out a lot of wattage. Now it's dropped down. The bed is actually not charging, and the amps disappear on the smart shunt. Turn it back on again. Normally this is where I have a problem. It goes 800, then back down to 400, back up to 900, then it goes back down to 400, and then it just quits. But I will get that message, and I'll try and capture this video for you to tell you exactly what it's failing to do. This does not always work, and today Murphy's Law has risen. Now let's just go to the bed and show you how I've wired it up. We are plugged into the bed. We've got the orange light on, so it's telling us that it's working. And if we follow this wire, it goes into the plug that goes as the pass-through and the nose cone to the batteries, as I've shown you before. Now I'm using this cable purely because it would sit in the bed, so it gets to the passenger rear. Now some of you may complain about this cable, but the reason why I'm showing it to you, because it works quite happily with this cable. I know it's a thin cable, but it's low amperage going through this cable. It is the battery charger that converts the higher amperage. So I know the bed outlet is only 20 amps, but it supplies the 20 amps or less to the battery charger, and from there it ramps it up to that 50 plus amps. I've tried it with different cables. I just want to show you with the thin cable that it works perfectly fine, and it also doesn't always work. So maybe I'll have to try this again a little bit later on as the battery voltage comes down, and then just double check to show you how it fails. But this is what the concerns are, I think, on some of these forums, and what these people are saying about the 2 kilowatt inverter system. It is hit and miss. It works and it doesn't work. In my previous videos, you've seen me use the microwave. We've used a kettle and a toaster together. We've had close to 1800 watts, and it works perfectly. For some reason, I can't get 900 or 950 watts with the battery charger, and it shuts it down. But today, Murphy's Law has risen, and it's working perfectly fine. So I connect it into the plug in the trailer that we made. I route it in the bed, down underneath the fifth wheel hitch, up into this area here. I strap it on my tonneau cover, and then I take it down and push it inside of the seal down the frame here. Oh, there we go. It pops out, and then I stick it under the door. If I do this, I then plug it into our power bar that is here. And this fixes all of my issues with charging while driving. And again, just clips it into the door right there, and no problem. So this is a reenactment of my brain working yesterday, hence the back shot. Thinking about why Murphy's Law kicked in about the electrical cables and charging the battery charger, I came to the conclusion whilst walking down this road back from the Constitutional, that I'm using a different cable. The one I'm showing you in this video is the long cable, long extension cable. And every time this has failed with me, I've been using my short cable. So now I want to go and have a look at what might be going on at the connections, because I created these cables, I cut them down, and I want to see if there's a problem with the fittings. So bear with me. Light bulb moment. Light. So this is what happens exactly like that when it doesn't work. It goes to a reset mode, as you can read right here, to say that it's exceeded the system's capacity. Now, let's go see how I rigged this up, because I did change something. So I am plugged in, as we see here. I'm going to lower the tailgate. And you can see here that I'm running a shorter cable. Put the lights on down here. To the plug. And this short cable is my problem, because when I run the longer one, which I'll show you in a few seconds, it runs perfectly fine, as we saw yesterday, and it wouldn't fail. Let me plug it in and show you. Okay, so I've changed the end. There's the yellow end right here, there's the black end, there's the short cable, and now I've got my long cable going down this big coil, and it's down in the hold as well. Let's go do the one more test in the truck. We'll do a quick reset. So I'm going to reset it. It's in generator mode. 650 plus. And it's charging nicely. And I will put in the corner the Victron Smart Shunts output to show you. It's going to be around 59 plus amps. So another thing that I noticed here is the low fuel warning will not allow generator mode to happen. So if we have a look at the instrument cluster here, you can see that my top right fuel gauge is pretty low on fuel, and it will not let generator work. So I'm going to go back to the shed, and I'm going to open up this cable and see what it's like inside and show you my potential error. Okay, so I'm pretty sure my error is the cable itself, as we just seen. So I finally got into opening this up, and I want to show you what I'm thinking is happening. And you can see that I've just pulled the black. I've unscrewed these because I'm going to have to do this by one hand. And I can see if I can do this. You can see on the green one right there, I've got a screwdriver. What had happened was I'd actually screwed the screw down and flattened the insulation. And I think you can just about see it on the white one as well. And I don't think that would have been the main problem. If I pull it out, you can probably see the white one was crushed there as well as the green one. But that was on the female side. And on the male side, I already adjusted this when we were camping, but it still didn't make any sense. You can see there's probably a little bit of a pinch there on the white, and the green's been exposed. But it works well with, or as, an extension cable for light work. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this out. Also, I want to show you how black some of that internal wiring is. So as you can see here, you can see the one on the right, how black the copper wire is, and the one on the left is not super brilliant, but it's a little bit, just ignore the fluff and stuff that's on there. It's a little bit more coppery. So I think that this cable is just, when it's under high load, it just stops working. And don't forget that I did find this electrical extension. This one was a neighbor of mine's, like 100-foot cable, and I thought he was throwing it away. He'd just run it over with his lawnmower in a few places, and I guess this was one of the areas where the cable had got a bit black from where he'd run it down. So I just was repurposing it to try and do other things with it. And this one's just let me down. So this one I'm going to repurpose. I actually have another one here. So I'm going to reuse that. I'm going to strip back these cables and have a look to see if they're good or bad. And I will try this one on the trailer as well. So I applied that new modified orange cable, and again the generator mode failed. You'll see here that it ramps up to 600 watts and then drops off, and it's over capacity. So that's a second cable that failed me. I discarded the orange second cable and went to a black cable, slightly thicker, and it also would not work in generator mode. The cable here you can see is -3 amps because the fridge is running. We're at 69%. That cable is a slightly thicker, I believe 14.3 cable, and it still did not want to produce any power going to the batteries. So, time to discard those. My plan was to let the batteries recharge using the 7-pin connector right here, and you can see I'm charging 12 amps currently to the batteries. When driving home, I realized that I had the long orange extension cable in the bed of the truck. So I then connected it the same way I did earlier, right here, over to the other side of the bed, underneath the fifth wheel hitch, through the tonneau cover, down through the seal, underneath of the floor, and through the door, then plugged it directly into my power bar and the back seat. And let's try this now. We select on, which goes to 400 watt mode. You'll see it overcharge right here because it's too much power. Just disregard that, turn it back on and hit generator mode. Yes, the engine will raise the idle, and bang, straight away it settles down at 800 watts, and you can see we're charging at 64 amps. I then asked Sandra to plug in her electric hand warmer into the AC charge port there, and you can see it jumps from 800 to 900 watts straight away. The system can handle it and works perfectly fine. So when we're driving home now, we should be able to charge up at 64 amps, and Sandra will be able to use her hand warmer. So in conclusion to this, and I apologize for the mic overview due to my phone connecting to Bluetooth in the truck, the system does not work as designed. And if we go back to the original message that I read at the beginning of this video, it does state that the box is different from the cab. And I would totally agree with this statement now. I was trying to prove it wrong because I've had so much success with using everything in the bed. And as you can see from all the different pictures here, this has taken several months to acquire this data. We did manage to drive home from here, and when we got home, you can see that we'd increased by 10% the state of charge. I want to thank you again for watching this video, and we'll see you again in the next one. Survive to be alive.